Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 607 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our sixth book just came out. It's called I'm So Beautiful, It's Ridiculous, Unleashing and Promoting Strength, Self-Worth, and Real Sisterhood. So go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, there are multiple paths to success in life. Let me say that again. There are multiple paths to success in life. And college is not the only path. I got news for everybody, okay? So our next guest is going to tell us much more on this particular topic. Terry Iverson is a manufacturing leader, author, and keynote speaker dedicated to reshaping America's perception of skilled trades. As founder of Champion Now, and author of Finding America's Greatest Champion and Inspiring Champions in Advanced Manufacturing, Terry brings over 45 years of experience mentoring and inspiring the next generation of makers. Welcome to the show, Terry.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, this is a really, really important topic, and I am so excited that you're on the show to share all of this because I do think that it opens up a wide range of options for not only high school graduates that are trying to figure out their next step, but even college students. I mean, this is really a tough job market right now for young folks. Let's just leave it at that, let that terminology. And so we need all the options we can get. I mean, everything is on the table right now. So you're a third generation machine tool leader. You're the founder of Champion Now, an organization that's really changing the way that America perceives manufacturing, which I think is wonderful. What originally inspired you to dedicate your life to this particular cause?
Well, let's say for starters, my family's been in manufacturing for 100 years. My grandfather started in the business in 1925, and here we are in 2025. So I feel an obligation to give back. But the actual path, one of the gurus in U.S. manufacturing is a gentleman by the name of Harry Mosier. And Harry Mosier founded the reshoring movement, which basically when in the 80s, when everything was offshored to Asia, or I shouldn't say everything, a great deal of manufacturing was offshored to Asia, Harry came up with the concept that you're actually losing more than you're gaining based on intellectual property, the cost of ownership, and the actual true cost. So he, told me that he was going to convince a lot of manufacturing to come back to the States. And when he did that, he got me speaking to young people in high school. And I said, Harry, you're going to bring a lot of manufacturing back. We don't have enough workers as it is. Somebody needs to speak up and change the perception to get more people involved. And so that's what got me going down that path.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously, we're seeing currently this push to move more manufacturing back to the United States. So I think all of this is very timely, this conversation. And you've spent over 45 years in this manufacturing world yourself. What are some of the really big misconceptions that are out there that college students have about careers in trade or manufacturing?
Well, gets a little bit more complicated, the explanation in recent events and recent technology gains. So first of all, a lot of manufacturing has become way more automated. The U.S. was a little bit slow to the punch, so to speak, in becoming more automated in their processes. Europe and Asia was much quicker, to that. But rapidly, the U.S. market is becoming much more digital, much more computerized, and much more automated. What I will say, and so our general public and our culture has a very naive perception, an outdated perception of what the reality actually is versus the perceived state of manufacturing itself. Here's the caveat. With the advent of AI, not only is there going to be an acceleration, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire, basically. Not only is it going to accelerate the manufacturing and the sophistication and automation, But there's other more traditional paths that are going to basically turn upside down. And so part of my messaging, Mike, is that a lot of young people put a lot of money and time, hopefully not in a student loan, which we'll talk about that in a minute,
Mm.
but they'll put a lot of time and effort and money into a conventional path, but they're already entering in potentially in a field that's already extremely populated because of our population and our culture and what we think we know. And then overlay AI on top of that. And a lot of the conventional career sets and job skills are going to be very different going forward than they are right now. So what AI won't do is AI won't turn a wrench. AI won't fix a machine tool. AI won't, they may program it, but it won't set it up. And so the trades in general, machinists, programmers, setup men, plumbers, electricians, and etc., they are going to be absolutely overwhelmed with openings, and we already have enough openings, hundreds of thousands as it is.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And you bring up student loans, and I think this is something that we really need to spend a little bit of time on because I work with college students every single week all over the nation, and I am seeing folks graduate from college with significant debt. And I'm concerned that it's in a major or a field, to your point, that is ultimately being phased out by technology, AI, and other tools. So the people who are listening right now, our fraternity and sorority members, the undergraduates, they're taking on debt. And you said that debt could be America's potential career killer. What do you mean by that? And what is your advice to college students that are listening right now and they're trying to figure out their path in life?
Okay, boy, this is a big one. All right, so I'm totally against debt or an overwhelming amount of debt. I'm definitely against student debt, and here's why. A lot of people don't even know that manufacturing is on the table for discussion. So let's just put it on the table for the time being. Once they look and say, okay, am I suited? Because keep in mind, manufacturing needs, financial analysis. They need salespeople. They need marketing people. They need HR people. So case in point, uh, when you look at manufacturing, a lot of manufacturers for a long time, myself included, have had to bring new employees in, out from the cold, so to speak, an analogy or a pun,
Mm.
and said, look, we'll keep you warm, we'll keep you safe, we'll keep you, fed, so to speak, and we'll send you to get skills that we need you, and we'll pay for it, that we need you to have to be an active participant in our workforce. So that, for starters, would indicate that a lot of times these skills are more important than a piece of paper. I believe that for a long time. But as time goes on, that's becoming more and more prevalent. For the first time in GM's history, for certain positions, they're not going to require a 4-year degree. So that speaks volumes. So I guess my message, Mike, is look, learning's for everybody, everybody. How you get the learning and how you pay for the learning, and what that learning is, and does that match your aptitude, and does that match your passion? I think that's my biggest message.
Yeah, well, that's a really good message, and I love your conversation about debt too. I need you to run for president too, so we could eliminate this debt that our nation has.
No, no, no.
Not for you, huh?
The
Okay.
country's debt is a whole nother discussion too.
I love that you coined the term app internship, where apprenticeship actually meets internship. I think that's brilliant. How can college students, or even recent grads for that matter, get involved in opportunities like this to gain hands-on experience?
Well, when I wrote when I wrote the chapter about apprenticeship, which is apprenticeship and internship embedded, the concept was in this country we have internships that I don't think they've reached the level of acceptance and of engagement that it needs to have because it's a win-win for everybody. And then we have the apprenticeship model that's coming back in many different trades. But in Europe, apprenticeship has been vibrant for a long, long time. And our culture in this country is not because apprenticeships kind of went away, at least in manufacturing they did. And so what my point in writing was the apprenticeship should almost start with an internship to make sure there's a match both for the individual and the company, and then work its way into an apprenticeship, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that makes, in this country, based on our culture, Mike, I think that makes more sense. However, outside of apprenticeships, internships, absolutely and positively, if a young person in college or even in high school is not looking and investigating and doing a deep dive in internships, I highly suggest it.
Hmm. I think mentorship is something else that we need to talk about. Your company has been around for 100 years, like you mentioned earlier. You're a longtime mentor. I'm wondering how mentorship actually shaped your journey, because clearly it has. And I'm also wondering how our listeners can become champions themselves for others in their chosen field.
Well, my parents split up when I was 6. I'm not going to go too deep here, but I was a child of a single parent home, okay? And my mom, she did her, God bless her. Both my parents are gone, but she did her best, and I commend her for that and thankful for that. But along the way, athletics was a big part of my life.
Mhm.
And so I had coaches that were mentors. I had family friends of my mom's that were mentors. I had uncles that were mentors. My dad was a mentor. And so it definitely shaped my life. But I think there's two things that shaped leadership for me. One was athletics and the commitment and the teamwork component, and the concept that you have someone relying on you on a team. On a football team, if you take one player out of the people that are on the field, the 11 that are on the field, you have a problem.
Mhm.
On any team, if you take your catcher out of a baseball game, you have a big problem, right? So the same thing is in the workforce and in any company that you either start or even work for. So from a mentorship standpoint, not only do you need to be accepting and engaging in receiving mentorship, whether you're in high school, college, or even a young person, but you also have to, in my opinion, look for opportunities to pass it forward and be a mentor. One of the concepts that I speak about, and I just spoke last Thursday about, is reverse mentorship. Some young people are like, I don't want to get a mentorship and receive all this tribal knowledge from these old guys that are baby boomers like me. Well, in reality, if you just look at it and invert it and say, well, you can reverse mentor us old guys and women as well, by helping all about technology and social media and web development and all these other things. When you think about it, you have as almost as much to offer as the mentor. And by reverse mentoring, now you're beginning to go down the stage of being a lifelong mentor yourself.
Yeah. I love that idea, that reverse mentorship. I think there's a lot of people that could really benefit from that. And college students right now, they look to each other for advice, which is like, I'm like, man, there's a million people out there that are, to your point, baby boomers that would love to, work with you and give you advice and show you the path to success just because it feels good for them. So you know what I mean? Like I'm like, man, what a waste. Like you have all these people with all this information and all this experience, and they're not being utilized properly. So that drives me bananas. The other thing too is we should talk about is leadership. I think that our fraternity and sorority members, college students, they're very focused on leadership. They're very focused on service. They do want to make this planet a better place, Gen Z, which I love. I think that really resonates with me, and service and giving back. But how do you see leadership from the manufacturing floor translating to leading a team or even a business?
Well, if you relate it to the being on the shop floor,
Hmm.
you can sit at your cell, let's say, and you're making product. And if you're by yourself and you're just trying to focus on that particular process, the process is only going to get so perfect, so high up the ladder in terms of finely tuned. But if you're reaching out to somebody else that has a fresh set of eyes on the shop floor, if you reach out to your manager and get his input, you reach out to quality, you get their input. Now your process really elevates. And in terms of leadership in fraternities and sororities, my advice to anybody involved in college is to look for opportunities where you can engage, you can give back, you can lead a committee, you can lead the frat or the sorority, you can hold fundraisers. And I've seen, very recently, I've seen younger generations come in and try to put themselves in leadership positions and really are not prepared for that. And I'll put in athletics in that also, because some people are very gifted athletically,
Mhm.
and that puts you automatically in a leadership position, and you're forced to show the way for other people as well. So I think critical thinking is a big component. I don't think in high school and grade school we teach that enough, critical thinking skills. And to be a leader, you have to be a critical thinker. So those are, some concepts, but I think that there's a real good component to the Greek system where there's a lot of engagement and a lot of assumptions that you will participate in certain facets.
100%, including service, I think is a really big component, which is important. I think that is our role here is to give back to others on this planet. The other thing I'm noticing too, especially with a lot of the young men that are in college, including my own son, by the way, is that he's a big gamer. Like this is like a really, really big thing right now with this generation. And you mentioned the growing link that exists between gamers and digital CNC manufacturing. So can you explain what is the connection between those two and how this generation's natural digital fluency can actually lead to really exciting careers?
Okay, so this is a really cool analogy and metaphoric comparison. I had an interview, a podcast with the CEO of Siemens, and Siemens, and Barbara Humpton is her name, and it was the Optimistic Outlook was her podcast,
Hmm.
and they're all about what they call the digital twin. Digital twin means that you can replicate, and a good example of the digital twin, Mike, is the Mars rover, where the Mars rover, you can't set up a studio and replicate, being on Mars. So all you can do is have a digital component, a digital model, and put all the data points into the digital model and accelerate the livelihood or the expectant efficiency and effectiveness of putting a rover on Mars with a digital twin. One thing in my research, my youngest is 36, I believe, if I think this out loud, and he's a gamer. Yet my 44 and 42-year-old are not gamers. So that's kind of interesting in itself. And I was never a gamer myself, obviously, from way back in the dinosaur age. So there's 3 billion gamers in the world. That's insane.
Insane.
I don't know, the world population is 7 or 10 billion. I think it's 7 billion, I think, or thereabouts. And so three sevenths is a huge percentage.
Huge. Yeah.
And the gender, it crosses over gender lines. There's almost as many women gaming as men. And so when you think about the digital connection a gamer has, one of the things that I researched is that there's a huge increase in people looking to be being programmers for gaming. But the job openings, there's a huge decrease because once again, it's a crowded market. So all these gamers, they want to be able to program and code games, but there's little or no openings based on the supply versus demand. So there's this natural transition into programming and coding games, gaming for gaming. But then there's this best kept secret in the world and in our country that CNC technology that runs on coding and runs on programming is right there in front of us and nobody knows about it. So my contention is between digital twin and CNC, which is computerized numerical control technology, it is a natural for many people or for more people than presently know about it. Let's put it that way.
That's a good opportunity for everybody who's listening who's a gamer out there. Now, Terry, you've written two books, Finding America's Greatest Champion and also Inspiring Champions in Advanced Manufacturing. So, what are some lessons from these books that you want our student audience to take away?
Well, the first book I wrote is directed at educators, industry members, students, and parents. I'll
Hmm.
say that.
Hmm.
And for the college student, there's a lot in there about mentoring, and to be honest, there's a lot in there about parenting too. One of my messages initially with the initial book is that we have a mentoring and parenting crisis in this country. I think we got away from old school parenting in this country. I think in Europe they're a little bit more um, accepting of old school mindset, which holds, tradespeople in very high regard, whereas tradespeople in our culture are looked down upon. And just a little bit about myself. I had ADHD before, they could spell ADHD, never diagnosed. I was an AP student, calculus and physics, and I was bored to death. I went to 5 universities, one, two, three, four, five. And finally, there was so much theory, and think about this, who's listening, there was so much theory and not practicality application of knowledge that I finally, after 6 years of college, said, I can't. I've got more theory than I can use. So the first book, there's a lot about mentoring, a lot about manufacturing, a lot about parenting. The second book, which those are either in student debt or considering going into student debt, the subtitle, it's Inspiring Champions in Advanced Manufacturing. The subtitle is Discover the Path to a Debt-Free Career. And so that being said, it's the secret that manufacturing's there. Manufacturers have hundreds of thousands of openings to hire and very few, much less applicants, and they're willing to pay for your upskilling, which means you shouldn't have to go into debt.
Yeah.
So those are the two underlying messages for both books.
Hmm. The students who are listening right now, many of them are really uncertain about their future. They're always looking over the fence, trying to figure out if their friend is actually on the right path. So they're always questioning, am I on the right path or is somebody else gaining ground on me? Maybe I should hop over there. This is constantly what they're thinking about. So if they are uncertain about their future, what is one action that they can take this week to start discovering what their path would be to becoming a champion? Is it going out and getting your book, Inspiring Champions in Advanced Manufacturing? What else can they do in order to start to discover what the path is forward?
Okay, so this is probably the easiest question to answer, and I'm going to get a little bit old school parent here. Young people today, and it's been this way for a while since the late '90s and early 2000s. You have every resource in the world to do research, but if you don't know it exists, then you might have an excuse. So be open. First of all, it's never too late to change a path. Better late than never. 6 years of college, I'm like, all right, I'm done. And off I go. I gave up on a degree. I realized that at that point, that long ago, that degree for me personally didn't hold the success key as much as I thought it did. Okay. One fact that I'll point out that I'd like some of your listeners to think about is it's only about 13% of young people in this country go to college, get a degree in 4, 5, or 6 years, and use that degree in their profession, in their career. So that's, 13%. I want to speak to the 87%. I want to speak and say, look, it's never too late. If you never knew about it, now you do, if you're listening. Yes, you can read the book. Yes, you can go onto my website and look at podcasts, your podcast included. You can read articles, you look at videos, you can search, do a search. I put, salary numbers, in which my book is actually from a financial standpoint a little out of date because since I wrote the first book and the second book, salaries have increased even more. And manufacturing is all about overtime when they're busy, let me tell you.
Yeah, no question about it. Really good stuff. Really important things for people to consider. Now, I do get to Illinois every now and then. My best friend actually just moved to the state of Illinois. So I'm wondering the next time I'm in your neck of the woods, is there a particular place I need to go for a great bite to eat?
Well, there's Chicago's known in general. Chicago's known for, deep dish pizza,
Oh yeah.
and that is my favorite. And most of the deep dish pizza places are downtown, and they're all right in the little area.
Yeah.
Gino's East, the Nuno's and Dues. But in Des Plaines specifically, I thought long and hard about it because you mentioned that, and Boston Fish Market has a place in Des Plaines. I think they're on Forest Avenue, and we went there not long ago. And of course, it's seafood,
Yeah.
and we had the most ginormous amount of seafood that we could possibly. I think I could have fed my whole family with one helping. But it was great. It was great food, and Chicago in general is probably one of the most iconic foodie cities in our country. And so I just pointed out some, seafood option and pizza option, which you have to, talk about. And
Sure.
then, if you get bored and you go to a ball game, then have a Chicago style hot dog.
There you go. That's the way to do it. I love all of it. I think it's all great. I am a New Yorker, so I do think the deep dish is a bit like a casserole, to be quite honest with you. It's very tasty. I'm not complaining about eating it. Believe me, I will sit down with you and we can go to Gino's East and we'll have a fantastic pizza. But it's really a casserole. I just have to be very clear. If you want pizza, go to New York
You got,
City for
you got
the
a
thin
point.
slice.
We can agree to disagree.
All right. So listen, this was a lot of fun. If our listeners, if they want to connect with you for speaking opportunities to talk more about advanced manufacturing, where should they go to connect with you?
Well, our website has more information than you could possibly imagine. We do camps called Camp Champ. The books, the videos, the podcast interviews are all on the website, which is Champion Now. So there's two N's in the middle, .org. So championnow.org. And then as far as emailing me, they can reach me at Terry with a Y at championnow.org. And I'll do my best to answer everyone that decides to email me.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Terry, for sharing all of this. Championnow.org is the website. Go and check that out. Email Terry, it's Terry at championnow.org, and he will certainly get back to you with any questions that you have. So thank you, Terry, for sharing all of this.
Thank you, Mike. I'm honored to be on your show.
Of course. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation with Terry, please like it and share it with other college students that are looking at various options in terms of their career, or even some high school students too that are trying to figure out their path. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.